Mm, Hey T, I'm trying to figure out how to share the screen. I'm trying to figure out how to share the screen with other than what I have. Because if I'm trying to get it to share like two screens so you can see what I'm dictating on my case catalyst software and what is being said, but it doesn't look like StreamYard is allowing two things, because when I dictate it you can see it, but since my mic has two cords, it will play, instead of just playing from the computer, straight from the computer, it'll play for somewhere else. Oh, you know what I could do probably? Hold on. Let me try to do this. I could probably just play it from my phone. Hold on. I think that's what I'll do. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 180 jury charge and literary. We're going to start off with some legal terms, and then I'm going to read you the paragraphs. So you're going to hear testimony, initial T, final M, exhibit, XIBT, make a squeeze, hearsay, HAERS, and then document. You can write document in one stroke, DOMT. All right, here we go. Ready? Oh, you're also going to hear mark for identification, which can be written as MOID, M-O-I-D, MOID. Ready? Testimony and exhibits are introduced in a case to prove certain facts. Testimony is given by witnesses and may include opinions, facts, and inferences. Circumstantial evidence is indirect evidence. Documents and tangible items are presented in the court as exhibits. Exhibits that are accepted by the court are marked for identification and may be received in evidence. Hearsay evidence may be permitted in court. At the close of the case, counsel may give closing arguments. The jury charge is given to the jury by the judge. The jury must then examine and weigh the evidence that was presented in the case. Okay. Moving right along to some literary, and the subject is bankruptcy. Ready? A debtor may wish to seek release from the liability of payment for his debts. This may be accomplished by initiating voluntary bankruptcy proceedings. The petition for bankruptcy is granted if the court finds that the debtor is unable to pay his debts. Most states require the debtor to submit a complete accounting of his assets and liabilities. Some states also require the financial background on persons closely associated with the debtor, his wife, children, business partner, etc. In the bankruptcy proceedings, the court will closely supervise the liquidation of all assets. Some states permit the debtor to retain certain assets if it can be proven that they are necessary for daily living. The court will recognize the claims by priority as follows. First, several claims such as mortgages. Second, priority claims such as taxes. And third, unsecured claims. Bankruptcy is a legal discharge from debts, but a moral obligation remains. The debtor will find that his credit standing is ruined. In most states, the debtor is required to wait anywhere from 3 to 10 years before reestablishing his former credit standing. Okay. I'm going to read to you some legal opinion and arguments. Here we go.
Okay.
Ready? All right, now shortly before the colloquy that appears on those pages of the Huntington Center's points and authorities, Mr. Penwell testified, and this is on page 32 of these depositions. I can see these depositions have been logged with the court, that they had negotiated branch offices for Coast in various other places, such as Walnut Creek, California, which is some 500 miles away, Diamond Bar out in the Pomona area, West Covina, and San Gabriel Valley, and Long Beach. All right, I will let counsel inquire into the fact that Mr. Penwell had conducted these negotiations for branch sites because I thought it had limited relevancy to the man's capabilities and his background and so forth and so on. Then counsel wanted to get into the negotiation of the terms and provisions of each of these leases, whether Coast engaged a broker and what they told the broker and what they instructed the broker. I submit, Your Honor, this is just too far afield. I mean, we could go on forever in these depositions on that basis. So I think questions 1 to 7 respecting the negotiation by Mr. Penwell of these other branch sites having nothing to do with Huntington Center or Huntington Beach were negotiations of other branch sites within 30 miles of Huntington Center. It is just, so much absurdity in context of this particular suit. All right, now let's go on to the questions 8 through 55. It seems to me, Your Honor, these can't be treated as one group. These appear at pages 27A to 27W of the points and authorities filed by the Huntington Center, and then also question 60, which is on page 30A, I think, belongs in this group. Now, these all deal, Your Honor, with the question of why Coast, in relocating its branch from Huntington Center to the Edinger Plaza location, chose to move the Edinger Plaza rather than to come to some other alternative location. Now, among those things, there are a series of questions asked to which officers participated in the decision to use Edinger Plaza, why that site was chosen among various alternatives. Mr. Penwell's conversations with officers as to why that site was chosen. It has nothing to do, as I pointed out earlier, with any anti-competitive motivation, assuming that that can conceivably be an issue. But again, the fact is they moved out of the Huntington Center, and what rights that may give Huntington Center depends upon the interpretation of the lease and upon the application of the lease, and why, when it chose to move out, it chose location A rather than B, C, or D. It seems to me, again, if these questions are permitted to be asked of Mr. Penwell, we are going to have 5 more rounds of these questions going on by the end of May. I think it is a useless kind of discovery. Question 56 on page 28A. Now that question was answered, and I don't know why the motion was made. Mr. Penwell was asked when he became aware of Coast's decision to relocate, and there is a specific answer to that question. Question 57 was not answered, but it seems to me that was an incomplete question because there was colloquy developed in the middle of that question, and the question was never completed. Now, the last 2 questions, I don't have the number of them now, But on pages 29A and 29B, Mr. Penwell is asked of what other savings and loans or competitors of Coast he is aware of within a 3-mile radius of Huntington Center. Again, Your Honor, that goes to the so-called anti-competitive desire, belief, attitude, motive, which I don't think is an issue in this case. Thank you, Your Honor. All right. My next article here is covering patents and copyrights. Here we go, ready? A substantial number of individuals, businesses, and corporations find it necessary to secure patents or copyrights. A patent is the registered right of the inventor to make, use, and sell his invention. A patent is valid for a period of 17 years. The patent application should be filled out carefully. There is a small filing fee which must accompany the application. A suit for patent infringement by another may be brought. Such suits are costly and time-consuming. However, if an infringement can be proved, monetary damages and an injunction are available. A copyright is the registered right of an author, composer, designer, or artist to reproduce, publish, and sell their work.
Yes, I'm talking in the mask while can you hear me though? Cuz I'm trying not to be able to be heard through my mask cuz you're not supposed to hear me when I'm speaking in my mask. You're only supposed to hear the person speaking. So, I'm speaking in the mask while it's dictating. Some of the words are coming out clear and some are just like that I really got to clean it up. Cuz right now I'm playing with two cat softwares. This right here is a cat. You hear the vibration? Ah, okay. Well, that's not too bad cuz I'm like right here next to the mic. So, I'm trying to okay, good. I'm trying to make it to where you can't really hear me cuz we supposed to be quiet. You supposed to not hear us. Cuz if we're in a courtroom and you hear that, that's going to be a distraction. So, we can't be a distraction. Okay. I am close to the mic. So, I don't know, it's like arm's length. So I have to speak a certain way, close to a whisper. Okay. Okay. So I gotta get my life together then. Thank you. Because when you go take the test, if they hear you, they will type. I mean, they will tap you. Oh, can't. Okay. Okay, cool. Because they will tap you if they hear you. Because you can't be over speaking the person in court. That's not, mm-mm. Or in a deposition. The only way it'll work is if you're like doing a freelance deposition through Zoom, which is ideal for a lot of people. But if you want to be in the court or you want to be at the actual deposition, they're not supposed to be able to hear you. And I'm a little congested. I be wanting to know from like other voice writers and other voice writing students, do they get congested when they speak fast? Because as you can see, I'm getting a little congested and I bought this like vapor inhaler thing and I sniff in it to clear my nostrils. Cause sometimes when I'm dictating so fast, my nose get clogged up, and I'm like, ain't nobody told me about that. So that helps. But voice writing is not as easy as it looks. Even though you know how to speak, it takes a lot of practice. So my next test is next month. And since they haven't got back to me on my literary test, I'm gonna just practice for my lit and my Q&A. Yeah, I sound a little congested. I know. I'm trying to get it together. Every time I speak fast, it just sneak up on me. And then I'm like, I don't know if I want to know voice codes or if I want to just speak it out. So like instead of me saying ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'll just say one word and it'll pop up. Watch this. Okay. So I just said one word and then ladies and the gentlemen of the jury just popped up. So that makes it go faster when you're trying to keep up. with the words. But if you don't remember the voice codes, you're gonna be stuck. Girl, I'm telling you, I've been in classes like almost every single day, and Q&A is not bad, but when you get to the for voice, I'd be like, what? And then when I look at cases online, like the Murdoch trials and stuff like that, and dictate with them, they're not as fast as the computer, but sometimes they are. Sometimes they faster. It really depends. I was looking at the Karen Reed trial today, but I wish they could have it to where you can I can have the case catalyst software here and split and have YouTube. That way y'all can actually see what I'm talking about. You be you be stressed but overstimulated. That's funny. I mean, it's this. It's not the same with the steno writer, but it's the same with the steno writer, except for with the steno writer, you're typing in on the keyboard, and that's fun and difficult too because I'm gonna probably once I get my certifications, I'm gonna come back with the steno writer and do the same thing with the steno writer. The thing about the steno writer is it's fun though. It's fun. You get all the tea. You know everybody business. You can't say nothing, but you be knowing all the gossip and all the juicy details. I know that court reporter in the Diddy trials, like, girl, what? You know all the information. Child support cases, like, well, not child support cases. I don't think child support cases, but I think like in certain cases where they like doing custody battles and stuff, you be knowing the tea. You can't legally, you can't say nothing, but after a while, when it becomes public record or public knowledge, you can speak on it. But even like when I become certified as a court reporter, even then, I'm not gonna say nothing. If there's a big case and I'm in it, the only way you're gonna find out that I'm in that case is if there's a videographer in the courthouse and you just see me like you see all these other court reporters. Other than that, I ain't saying nothing. And then when somebody says, "Is that you?" I'm like, "Girl, no." It's fun though. I enjoy it. Um, let me do one of the Murdoch trials or something. Maybe Karen Reed. I've been reading Karen Reed's trial, and let me see. Day one. I'm gonna start off where I left off with the Karen Reed trial, and then for a paragraph, like it's really I don't know how to explain it. So when they do jury duty, do they do that too? Um, there's no court reporter in the actual jury room, but when they're selecting a jury, I believe that they have a court reporter present. It's called Vord. I don't know. Oh, I ain't even gonna try to pronounce Vordor. I can't pronounce it, but they ask a lot of the jury members that they want to select questions, and then they decide if they want that person to be on the jury or not. And I believe there's a court reporter then too. And then sidebar, it depends on what counsel and the judge wants if the court reporter is going to be there. But a lot of times the court reporter don't be on this sidebar. So yeah, it's fun though. You get all the information, and then it could be boring, depending on who's speaking. If you got somebody speaking slow or something like that, it's gonna be difficult. If you have somebody who has like a heavy accent and you can't really understand, that probably will be a little difficult. But majority of the time they got like interpreters and stuff. So let me see. I'm gonna do a little bit of this Karen Reed trial, and then I'm about to get off because I need to go figure out what I need to cook. I took out some ground turkey, but I don't know. Let me see.
The longer he didn't respond, the more upset she got. The Commonwealth will intimate, as they already have in their opening statement, that these voicemails are evidence that the two were fighting. The actual evidence in this case, however, will show the exact opposite. You'll hear that Karen was very agitated. You'll hear some voicemails where she's swearing. You'll hear voicemails where she calls them names. There's name calling. But you'll also hear the context of those voicemails. And every single one of those voicemails was left for John after he failed to come back out of the house, after he failed to respond to her voicemails and to her texts. Karen believed John had just left her sitting there, grabbed a beer, partying with his friends. The evidence will actually show that John and Karen never had a crossword, not a single crossword that entire evening before he left that SUV and went inside the house. And you will learn what Karen had absolutely no way of knowing at the time. It wasn't that he wouldn't respond to her. It's that he couldn't respond to her. And the evidence will show you why. Let's talk about that. We'll introduce you to a doctor named Elizabeth Lobosada, a renowned forensic pathologist, a medical examiner, and a professor at Brown University. She will tell you that the injury to the back of John's head, first of all, was immediately incapacitating, and that has meaning. At the moment he suffered that fatal head injury, he couldn't walk, talk, grab his phone, cry for help, nothing. He was completely incapacitated, completely unconscious from the moment he suffered that injury. He was completely still and incapable of interacting with anyone or anything. But the doctor will tell you something more, and just as important. She'll tell you that John O'Keefe did not suffer from hypothermia, as the Commonwealth will undoubtedly allege. His body showed no signs of it. No frostbite, no cold-induced injuries to his organs, no damage based on cold or frost. Ladies and gentlemen, the scientific evidence and the medical evidence will establish that John O'Keefe had to be injured somewhere else, somewhere warmer, and his body had to have been moved out into the cold. And that's where, ultimately at 6 a.m., Karen found him the next morning. You will learn that John did not have a single injury consistent with being hit by a car. Let me say that again. The evidence will establish that John did not suffer a single injury on his body consistent with having been hit by a car. Not one. You'll learn that John's torso, his ribs, his chest, his arms, his hips, his legs, his knees, his ankles, his feet, all of them, no broken bones, no fractures, no contusions, no torn ligaments, no internal injuries, not even a bruise. Nothing consistent with a car accident, despite the Commonwealth's contention that he was slammed into by a 6,000-pound SUV. Not a bruise. Dr. Lobosada will tell you with medical certainty that, in fact, John was not struck by a vehicle. Medically and scientifically, he could not have been struck by a vehicle. Therefore, as I said, there was no collision. She will tell you that the patterned abrasions on John's right arm, the patterned abrasions you see over my left shoulder, they're not the result of being struck by a car or a taillight. You'll take one look at these injuries and you'll agree with Dr. Lobosada. The evidence will show that these injuries are from an animal, like a large dog, like the large dog that was inside the Albert house that night. You'll learn that Brian Albert has actually admitted that his large dog, the family dog, is, quote, not good with strangers. And of course, John, never having been to the house before, was a stranger that night. You'll also learn that oddly, very oddly, after having their family pet for 7 years, a short time after this incident, the Alberts got rid of that dog. They called it rehoming her. But she was gone. Dr. Dr. Lapasato will also tell you that the injury to John's head was not the result of falling backward onto a flat lawn, cold or otherwise. Rather, Dr. Lapasato will tell you with medical certainty that the injury pattern to his scalp was produced by an impact from a raised or ledged surface, a surface that does not exist on Brian Albert's front lawn where John was found. The medical evidence will establish no hypothermia, no injuries from a car strike, no collision with a motor vehicle. And forensic analysis of John's cell phone, Mr. Brennan mentioned that in his opening statement. The Commonwealth's own expert will ultimately support the exact facts that I just told you, including the temperature data. John O'Keefe was injured someplace warmer, and he was moved. That alone is reasonable doubt, but there's much more. You'll also learn that there were many people at that after-hours gathering at Brian Albert's house who would have left by the front door just feet from where John O'Keefe's body would have ultimately been had he actually been there right after 12:30 a.m., which is what the Commonwealth's claim is. There were nearly a dozen people who walked out that front door directly adjacent to the precise spot where John O'Keefe would have been lying. Not a single person, not one, not a single person, saw a 6'2", 216-pound man laying sprawled in the front lawn in dark clothing on a light white dusting of snow. Not one. Then the evidence will also show that every one of those same people drove by that same spot, not walked by it, drove by it to leave the house, and still not one of them saw John laying in the yard when they left between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. in the morning. But you know who else you will find never saw a body on that lawn? The snowplow driver, a completely independent witness charged with plowing the streets in Canton that night. You'll hear that Michael Proctor, oh, he's not done yet, Mr. Proctor. You'll hear that Michael Proctor wrote a report where he claimed that Fairview had not been plowed that night. You'll learn that that was completely false. That was a lie. Michael Proctor did not want any more witnesses. He didn't want the truth, and he falsely claimed the road was never plowed. You'll learn that he wouldn't look for the plow driver, but we did, and we found, and we'll introduce you to Brian Loughran. He plowed Fairview that night, but what he's going to tell you is that there was no body on that lawn at 2:30 in the morning. You'll learn that Brian Loughran passed by 34 Fairview traveling right next to Brian Albert's front yard, and at 2:30 a.m., John O'Keefe was not there. But you'll see that the plow driver also provides some other troubling information, troubling testimony for the Commonwealth. You'll learn that after making that pass at 2:30 a.m., he showed up with his plow an hour later. He stopped at the entrance of Fairview. He was looking up Fairview to decide whether or not to plow it, but he saw an obstruction. At 3:30 a.m., he looked down the street, and in the very spot precisely where Karen would later find John's body laying at 6 a.m., there was a car parked in front of him, a Ford Edge. You're going to ask yourself, who's moving a car at 3:30 in the morning into a blizzard on the side of the road? You'll learn that Michael Proctor, the lead investigator, intentionally ignored this fact as well. He did no investigation to find out who owned a Ford Edge. But again, we did. And the evidence will establish that Ford Edge happens to be a favorite model of the Albert family. More than one Albert owned a Ford Edge at the time. You'll learn that those facts will add to the mounting and the overwhelming evidence that there was no collision and John O'Keefe's body was moved onto that lawn. You'll find that this is yet additional reasonable doubt in the case. You'll be introduced to science and physics, even from the Commonwealth's own experts. That science will establish that Karen Reed's SUV was not damaged by hitting a pedestrian, and conversely, John O'Keefe's injuries did not come from being struck by a vehicle. The Commonwealth mentioned triggering events, but what you'll actually learn from the experts, some of them the Commonwealth's own experts, is that a triggering event is not evidence of an accident. It does not evidence a collision. That's why we're here. A collision. And there's no evidence of one. Zero. You'll also find that those exact sort of triggering events that the Commonwealth will rely on are relatively commonplace on Karen's SUV, and none of them are associated with a claim of a collision. Folks, the science will not lie. The physics cannot lie. And that science will tell you with certainty there was no collision with John O'Keefe. You'll add that to that rising mountain of reasonable doubt. I want to take you back to the night in question, January 29th, for just a few minutes. Remember, Karen had gone home after dropping off John and John walking to the house. While Karen was asleep at home with John's 13-year-old niece, what were the people who had been at Brian Albert's house that night? What were they doing? While she slept, what you'll find and what the evidence will show is that they were extremely busy. You'll learn that after a long night of heavy drinking, Brian Higgins left the Albert residence, but he didn't drive home. Rather, he drove over to the Canton Police Department, where he kept an office at about 1:25 a.m. Not a Canton police officer, but he kept an office there. Why go back to his office at 1:25 a.m.? Why go back to the Canton Police Department at 1:25 in the morning on the night of a blizzard? You'll learn that while there, Higgins made a call at 1:30 a.m. Higgins will later deny that he made that call. You'll find that curious. And his explanation for that late-night visit to Canton PD, you'll find that it changes nearly every time he's asked about it. You'll learn that after everyone left Brian Albert's house, Brian Albert actually claimed he had no contact with anybody else except his wife. No contact. Until he woke up the next morning. So he says. Then you'll learn that that, too, is a complete lie. His phone records established that he placed a call to none other than Brian Higgins at 2:22 a.m. Shortly after Higgins completed that late-night visit over to Canton PD. You'll wonder, what did they possibly need to talk about at 2:22 a.m. that night? The evidence will establish that Brian Albert called Brian Higgins first. Brian Albert then disconnected that call when Higgins didn't answer it. Seconds later, Brian Higgins returned the call. Brian Albert then did answer that call. They spoke for 22 full seconds. Had a conversation, then they both hung up their respective phones. You'll learn that when they were asked about these calls and conversations, both Brian Albert and Brian Higgins lied about it. Both of them. They said they never had a call with each other. But then ultimately, when they were confronted with their own cell phone records and they could no longer deny the calls, they were asked independently, explain yourself. And they both came up with the exact same explanation. A butt dial. The evidence will make you question, why did Albert and Higgins speak it?
I said a butt dial, and it said up Adele. uh, that's what I'm saying. You gotta like, hold on, let me try it again. It didn't even say it. Did it say it? Hold on. So like when I play my audio back, I will hear a butt dial. Yeah, right. I'm Adele. I will hear a butt dial. So what I'll do is I'll go to the mistranslation and I will edit and put a butt dial. That's the benefit of being able to do your transcripts. But when you perfect it to the point where you may not need that and have a certain percentage of accuracy, you can do real time, which I'm like far from. So for whatever reason, my dragon does not want to say a butt dial. It wants to say Adele. Maybe that's their favorite artist. I don't know. Let me try it again. There it go. So when you start doing dictation at like 140 words per minute and or 120 words per minute, it's easy because you know how to speak. But then when you go faster in speeds, you get a lot of mistranslation, so you have to kind of work on that. Because instead of me getting the butt dial, I had to say that slow. If I say it fast, it's gonna talk about Adele. So that's like, it's whatever. But the benefit of that, again, I can go up here. I don't know if y'all can see that, but right here where I'm circling, hold on, let me go to the actual screen. Right here where I'm circling, that's the mic. And I'll play back my audio using this. And when I can play it and stop it and go back to it and see where I left off at and all that good stuff. And if I don't hear something I don't like, I can always erase it and put the correct answer. So it's fun doing voice writing. I like steno writing too. That's even more complicated, but that's how crazy it get. You could say, I've heard court reporters say that they tried to say a word and cuss words will come out and stuff. So it's like you really got to train it and go back and practice it and really, you know, keep practicing and training your software. It's not as easy as it looks. It's pretty challenging, but it's worth it in my opinion, because I was trying to dictate the Karen trial this morning. That's why I was at where it was at before I had class, and it was pretty fun. And like I said, you get all the information and stuff, and you get all the tea, and you don't have to say anything. So, what does it mean when the words are blue? Okay, so the words that are blue up here, these are my conflicts. So the word two obviously has three meanings. There's two, and two. The number two, TOO. So I'll put a conflict on here, which is different from the other software that I'm using. But on this particular software, which is Case Catalyst, if I want the number two, I will select two and it'll change to that two. But if I don't want the number two and I just want regular two, I'll just press one and it'll turn it black because that's the one. Because sometimes I'll say two or weather or something like that, and both of them will pop up and I can select which one is relating to it. And then the next time the software picks it up, it'll still be blue, but it'll be easier to select. Let me see if I can find one that's not all the way. See, there's there, an office there, like, I don't know what I was trying to say. Look, it says Love Fest. Did y'all know y'all didn't hear me say Love Fest? Love Fest. See what I'm saying? There's two different types of there. I would use instead of this there, because this there is possessive, like their bike, their house, their car. That's a possessive there. The other there, which is going there, I would use that there, if that made any sense. It made sense to me when I said it. X-Men. I ain't say no damn X-Men. See? Injuries.com. Y'all know, y'all been on this live with me. Y'all didn't hear me say that. So anyway, I can't find one that translates like that already because I've been using this for so long. So my software already knows what I'm trying to say. But there will be times where they'll give you the options and it'll spread out. Like doctor, there's like three different ways to write doctor and stuff like that. And you'll be able to select it. That was a good question, T. I'm about to get off here, Cheryl. I just wanted to practice a little bit. I'm about to go make me something to eat. And then I am going to probably try to do this on a daily, like do a few Q&As, because I just need to pass my Q&A and my literary and also a written test. And then I'll be able to get my CVR, and that test is July. It's going to be at Knott's. So I booked a hotel for like, I think 5 days we're going to be at Knott's. I'm bringing the kids, and while I'm at the convention and doing my testing, they can go on the rides and do all that other stuff because I went and bought passes because I was like, it didn't make any sense to just pay for like 5 days. It was actually cheaper to just get the season passes. So I got everybody's season passes, and I'll probably be vlogging that and putting that on here and our family channel. So all my court reporting stuff is going to be on this channel, but all the family vlogging stuff is going to probably be on Demary Dynasty and stuff like that. So I'm excited about it. I told them to relook at that other test. I haven't got anything back yet, but either way, I'm gonna still prepare for both tests. So I only need to take down 2 tests. I'd already passed jury charge at 95%. Now, it's not with court reporting. If you get a 90% in real college world, that's a good grade. In court reporting school, that's a bad grade. That's not a bad grade. It's just not passing. I was trying to see if I could see any corrects as you were speaking into your stenomask. So it's kind of delayed too. Because it's a lot of mistranslations in this. You being a big back, don't be a big back. I'm sitting here saying don't be a big back, and I'm eating a Slim Jim. So we just gonna be big backs today. Even Robinson, that look like Robison. That don't even look like Robinson. So I have to look at my Dragon dictionary to see if that word's even in there. Let me see how it dictated that doctor name, because I know. And the good thing is too, let's say I don't know how to pronounce that person's name. Let's say their name is Onomatopoeia or something like that, or supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I can make a voice code for that and say a word that I'll remember, and it'll pop it up for me. I just got to remember it. Yeah, I appreciate you, Cheryl. I know I've been busy. I'm really trying to get my life together. I've been super busy. I've been trying to put videos out here and there, but I've been super busy. So thank y'all for joining me. And if you have any questions, just hit me up. Eventually, I'm going to come on here with my steno writer. Go get your chips. Thank you, Paula. I'm so happy to see you. All right, y'all. I love all of y'all. You're the best. I will talk to y'all later.
We in a no hyena zone. Anti-hyena.